Namaste, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. UNCDF, in partnership with Singapore FinTech Festival, is organizing a series of events across multiple countries to achieve the common goal of building inclusive digital economies and financially resilient societies. In Nepal, we have organized this event where we will be discussing about connecting farmers, smallholder farmers to markets through AgriTech solutions. And for the panel, we have today Dr. Shreemat Shrestha, who is Senior Scientist at Nepal Agriculture Research Council, Mr. Anand Bagaria, who is Managing Director at Nimbus, one of the leading agriculture company in Nepal, and Abhishek Muller, also a leading entrepreneur in SunFarmer Krishi. As you know, agriculture marketing in Nepal is not very much organized, and we'll explore major challenges and opportunities in agriculture marketing in Nepal, how we can increase efficiency in getting agri products from farm to market. Also, we can bring agri inputs at a lower cost to the farmers. So to initiate the discussion, I would like to first welcome Dr. Shreemat Shrestha. Can you please tell us what? Yeah, Dr. Shrestha, can you please tell us, when we talk of AgriTech, what kind of agriculture technologies are available and used in Nepal at the moment?
Before going to the type of technologies used in Nepal, I just would like to elaborate the agriculture, the type of agriculture performed in Nepal. Nepal is basically agrarian country, and where about a quarter of GDP is contributed by the agriculture, but more than 2/3 of its population is directly dependent upon their livelihood in agriculture. And especially if you talk about the crop, we mainly grow rice. Rice is the #1 crop, and because of the diversity of the country, especially in the plain area, we grow rice, wheat, and whereas in the hills, we mainly grow the maize and millet, and in the high hills, in the mountainous area, mainly the livestock, sheep, and the pasture land is cultivated. So if you talk about the technologies, means we got a diverse type of technologies adoption. For example, in the especially for the tillage, especially in the plain areas of Nepal, we use tractor and power tillers. More than 80%, more than 85% of the tillage operation is mechanized in the plain area, and where they use the cultivator, harrows, and rotovators. Whereas in the hills, mainly animal-drawn plow is being used, but nowadays people are using the power tiller and the mini tillers. It is estimated that more than 30,000 mini tillers are in use in the hills, whereas in the mountain, still the animal-drawn plow is used. And if you talk about the sowing and the plant establishment, especially it's mainly the manually done, but we in the Nepal Agriculture Research Council, we are promoting different type of technologies like rice transplanter, wheat drill, wheat seed drill, zero-till drill, maize planter, sugarcane planter, potato planter. We are promoting it, but still majority of the people are adopting the manual methods. Whereas with the weeding, it is also mainly performed manually, and where the women are mainly involved, and we are promoting the mechanical weeders, especially for the paddy and the dry land. And with respect to the plant protections, farmers are using the sprayers, compression type of sprayers. Nowadays, farmers are using the knapsack sprayers. And with respect to the irrigation, majority of is the surface irrigation, especially in the Terai, people are now especially using the shallow tube wells. And even the other methods of irrigation like the sprinklers, drips, is also slowly farmers have started adopting these technologies. And nowadays, the solar pump is also being increased, especially it's been used in the hilly areas as well as in the Terai areas. But with respect to harvesting, it's a very good scenario we can see, especially farmers are using the reapers. Nowadays, even the combine harvester farmers are using in the Terai, it's estimated that more than 700 combine harvesters are being used. And the tracers, almost in the Tarai, more than 90% tracing operation is mechanized, whereas in the hills, it's a partially, but in the mountain, it's still manually performed. So means we got a mixed type of technologies for the different agroecological zone. The mechanization is different. Whereas with respect to milling, we found that it's almost totally mechanized throughout all the agricultural zones, because people are using the grinding mills, selling, dehusking, as well as oil expelling. Mills are we found in every villages. So this is the brief scenario. What I'd like to elaborate the different type of technologies that have been adopted in Nepal.
Thank you, Dr. Shrestha. Thank you for giving us an overview of the production-related technologies that are being used, and we are glad to see that more of the agriculture is being mechanized in Nepal. Now, I would like to move to our another panelist, Mr. Anand Bagaria, Managing Director of Nimbus. Mr. Bagaria, tell us about your company and your work. And what constraints do you see in general in connecting farm to market in Nepal?
Thank you, Saroj. We at Nimbus are more about agri-processing. So we produce feed, we produce various kinds of food, package it, process it, and also into edible oils. So we work on the concept of a zero wastage. So the combination of feed and food kind of creates, the byproduct of one goes into the as a raw material to the other. So makes it a literally zero wastage production strategy. We come up with our feed brand is called Shakti, and our grocery brands are called Genjan. We are working on in this era when people are talking about plant-based protein, we are working on some very interesting products, and hopefully we will be able to launch it in the next 6 months. One of the major things that we do at our end is, as a policy matter, we do not do anything that will put us in direct competition with the farmers. So which essentially means that we would like to upgrade them as in terms of technology and various inputs, but we would not like to get into farming because they are best at it. So as a matter of fact, we are on the input sowing part of the business. We are gradually increasing our stake into the post-harvest part of the business, and also working in tandem with the farmer to improve his technical skills and bring about the global developments that happen. For example, we do a lot of demo farms on maize. We have done demo farms on poultry, and we've done demo farms on soybean. And very interestingly, we have also worked on intercropping of maize and soybean. And you would most of us know that most of the oilseeds and the proteins are imported into Nepal, and it would be very interesting to see protein produced in Nepal. So that's a big opportunity that we see on, and we are working on it. Talking about the constraints, I think some of the major constraints, there are many if I was to list out, but then if I was to talk about few, then I would say one is the production and consumption data. We read all kinds of contradictory data all around. So that kind of makes it a little difficult to predict what prices and what quantity the industry can consume and what needs to be imported. Second is the quality standards. Nepal being a large, longish belt, we have various kinds of varieties grown for the same crop, and the standardization of that is something which has a big potential. A constraint is also an opportunity as an entrepreneur would look at it. And thirdly, as a agri-processor, if I need to buy a quantity of any particular product, that is a big challenge, and that is why we resort to import. So I would say aggregation. Aggregation is a big challenge, and with aggregation comes the storage and so on and so forth. And fourth, I am not too sure if I should be saying this, but then our agriculture is very government dependent. And if we need to make it more entrepreneurial than be government dependent. So with this, I would pass it on to Saroj again.
Thank you, Anandji. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you mentioned about this aggregation and all the issues in the connecting farm to market. I would like to move to our next panelist, Mr. Abhishek Muller, who is CEO of a tech company, I would say. I mean, he will mention about his company, SunFarmer Krishi. Abhishek ji, tell us about your company and your work, and what are the challenges in connecting farm to market from your perspective. Over to you.
Thank you, Saroj. Thank you for this invitation. So SunFarmer Krishi is basically an agro-based company, chiefly working on vegetable productions and also on advisory services. So basically, our model is on end-to-end model, where we are basically working is from farm to fork, where we are looking at the supply chain from the production end to the market side. We are not only growing on our own farm, but also, connecting with the farmers in the zone and also across the countries. So currently we have around 150 farmers connected with us. And this is the model basically we are working, and we are now also thinking of expanding into other zones. Currently we are working in 2 districts. On the challenges side, I will also like to align with Anandji, as he mentioned, one of the major challenges the supply chain management. So there is a high uncertainty of supply and demand, because the Nepal fresh vegetable market is very, very unorganized. And due to this uncertainty, there is a very high volatility in the price. So the price fluctuation can swing at a very high difference on day-to-day basis. So that's one of the major challenges. So, data is highly crucial on that side. The other challenge I see is unfair risk sharing. So if you look at this vegetable value chain system, often the prices at the farm gates are determined by the vendors, and the farmers, they don't even know the prices till the produce are being sold by the vendors. So what happens in reality is the vendors would pass on the waste and the losses back to the farmers. So the farmers are bearing all that risk, and also the risks on the on the production side. So that's, I think, is a very, very unfair risk sharing. The another challenge I would like to highlight here is viability of access. I mean, majority of the farmers in Nepal are smallholder farmers. The production that they would do is in a very, very small quantity, which is highly uneconomical in terms of logistics to take it to the market. And also, the farmers can't go by themselves to the market because they have other things to do as well on the production side. So this unfair advantage is taken by several layers of intermediaries, which results in unfair pricing to the farmers. So these are some of the major challenges that I would like to highlight, which is creating that barrier of connecting farm to the market.
Thank you, Abhishek ji. Thank you for giving this overview. Now I would like to move to Dr. Shrestha from NARC, Nepal Agriculture Research Council. You mentioned about a lot of production related technologies that are being deployed in Nepal right now. Dr. Shrestha, can you tell us what are the key challenges in using technologies to connect farm to market, and what are the opportunities offered by the technology?
As mentioned by the Anandji and Abhishekji, Nepal is smallholder dependent agriculture. Majority of the farmers are the small farmers. And if you talk about the land area per household of the farm size, it's less than 0.66 hectare, about 2/3 of a hectare. And that too divided into, in average, 3 parcels. Each parcel will be about around 0.2 hectare. So the small farm size is one of the major challenges for the adoption of the modern agricultural technologies. Another is the diverse our system. Our system is so diverse because within the small this distance, we got a different topography. So we grow in the double cropping of rice is there, and similarly maize-based system in the hills. So means different agroecological zones. So diverse type of agroecosystem. One there's a challenge as well as we can convert it into the opportunities. Another is the rolling topography in the hills and mountains, and especially we do not have the facilities, road network, road and the infrastructure that in the farm level. So that is also the major challenge for the adoption of the technologies. And similarly, majority of the farmers are the resource poor farmers, and especially we do not have a good this credit, the financial intermediaries in the rural areas. This is one of the problem. And also, especially if you talk about the custom hiring service, because only for the small farmers, they cannot own the machines. So the rental service is the major thing, how they can use the modern technology. And how about those rental service, this custom hiring machinery rental service also informal. So there is no right and responsibility of the service provider and the receiver is not clear. As well as if you talk about, we do not have that good operators. For example, before that I talk about more than around 700 this combined harvester are in use in Nepal, but most of those operators are coming from the India. So majority of those earnings from this combined harvester is taken away to the India. So we also lack the training of the operators. And similarly, especially if you talk about the machinery rental service providers, they lack the entrepreneurship skill. If you talk about, they do not have proper record keeping, bookkeeping, communication, and marketing skills. They lack. And what we also found is that, especially if you talk about the spare parts, the high cost of spare parts, because on the high duty and the high maintenance costs. And also, we also lack especially the challenges is that, especially there is no extension mechanism for this agricultural machinery promotion. So these are the major key challenges what we observe in Nepal for the promotion of this modern agriculture technologies in Nepal.
Thank you, Dr. Shrestha. I would like to move to Mr. Anand Bagaria. How can private sector entities like yours can connect with agriculture cooperatives, as you mentioned earlier about the aggregation that are spread, the cooperatives that are spread throughout the countries?
Thank you, Saroj. I mean, there are a lot of things that could be done, and I think there are being done a lot of joint exercises, but I am personally talking about it, rightly pointed out by you. We need to get these cooperatives trained and also equipped with the required infrastructure to create that aggregation. I mean, if we were to look at our Nepal's crop production, Shreemat sir will agree with me on this, that about 6 or 7 crops kind of contribute to 60 to 70% of the GDP, agri GDP. So if that is how we are to look at, I mean, do you want to pull, if we were to install any systems in the entire ecosystem, I think one of the major things I would advocate is aggregation. And with aggregation comes the standardization, and also maybe encourage to a certain level of processing, even if not full processing, maybe semi-processing. When I say semi-processing, I mean, cleaning, grading, sizing, and maybe even looking at different varieties. Let's say if you were to talk about wheat, there are various varieties. If you were to talk about potato, there are various varieties. And maybe with the work with the Agri Ministry and create divert government, not use government resources very zonally. So if a particular zone is good at that, let's create that kind of infrastructure over there. And on the PPP model, I would think that government, us, and the cooperatives can really work on this and create a ripple in the agri economy altogether. This will also bring about the specialization that is missing right now. Most of our farmers seem to be generalist on anything and everything, and they keep changing their crop pattern as per the market. Whereas if we could create a scenario, an ecosystem where they keep specializing and keep getting better with a particular crop or a particular set of crop, which is very suitable for the soil they are on. This is where I feel that three of us can work together.
Yeah. Thank you, Anandji. On the, just a follow-up question to it. The cooperatives, the number of cooperatives are very large in Nepal, and so the idea that you said about infrastructure or developing their capacity can be huge. So I was just thinking that with the digital technologies, it will be. How do you see the sort of possibility of connecting with these cooperatives digitally with the private sector entity who can buy or sell inputs to them?
See, once the aggregation happens or the infrastructure is in place, the private sector, especially the processing industries, they would look forward to buying from them. It's about creating a global parity. If import is cheaper, I would go for import. But if the same crop in Nepal is available at the cost at which an imported product would land to me, and the quality is the same, I would go for the local product, because it kind of helps me manage my inventory better and keep my working capital costs low. But having said that, working with the cooperatives will have a different dimension altogether. You rightly said there are so many cooperatives, but the agenda of these cooperatives are not very clear. They are very generalist cooperatives. I have seen some specialized cooperatives in the dairy sector, but on the other sectors, the specialization is still missing. I'm yet to come across a cooperative which specializes in maize or wheat specific or soybean specific. And till the time we can convince them to be very specific on the crop, the infrastructure cannot be decided. So it's a very chicken and egg situation. And that is why I said that the PPP model, if three of us could sit down and promote a few to lead by example, that would work. That's what I think.
Thank you. Abhishek ji, I would like to move to you. Based on your rich experience, what are the key constraints you see in connecting farm to market? You touched upon few already, but can you highlight a little bit more based on the discussions that we had?
Definitely. There are many, but if I have to be very particular, I think one of the most important thing, and which has been talked about by our earlier speakers, is the information collection, analysis and disbursement system, because there is such a lack of information in this unorganized market. It's basically like what is the farmer producing, or when is it ready for harvesting, how is the price communicated with them, all of this thing. I think it's very, very critical, and I think it's one of the fundamentals for even if you want to go for aggregation or kind of build a certain model where there is the PPP model or any other model. I think it has to be based on the information and those kind of systems. So I think that's highly critical, and that's what digital can bridge that gap. That's what I think. The other thing is, as Shreemat sir also highlighted, is infrastructure. Infrastructure, it's the production is highly dependent on infrastructure to access to the market. Such as we don't have all good weather roads. Transportation is a big problem in this sector, especially with perishable products. So that's, I see, is a very, very important side as well. And another thing I really want to highlight here is the vicious debt cycle that the farmer goes through. So basically what they're doing is they're investing into production for 1 to 3 months, and basically they are when they sell the produce, they have a payment delay system. Now, who is controlling this is mostly the vendors and the intermediaries that are, buying the produce back from these farmers. So the farmers are unable to break that vicious debt cycle from season to season. And, what is really, really important is, the government or, other financial bodies coming in and, supporting to break this very vicious debt cycle. So I think this is some of the very, very major key constraints, and there are many, but yeah, and I think we can go on and on about it. But I think some of the important points are these 3 points.
Yeah, just to follow up, Abhishek, do you see the opportunities among these challenges?
Exactly. I see a lot of opportunities because the demand is already there in the market. If we look at season to season basis, we can forecast the demand very, very easily. So the thing is, how do we have that management information system platform where we can collect this data, where the sellers and the buyers can get together and do the deal. Definitely, there's a lot of streamlining activities that can be done to do this, but we are just talking about one part of the value chain, which is from on after the harvest to the market side. But what I believe is we have to look at the whole value chain system from the input to the end side, and that's very, very important in this sector because if one of the value chain segment is distorted, the whole system gets distorted. So it has to be looked at a very holistic level, and that's why SunFarmer Krishi has gone to end-to-end model rather than just focusing on one, because all of this I know in a business it's we have to try to keep it very simple, but in agro-based industry you have to juggle with all of this value chain, otherwise success would be far-fetched.
Yeah. Thank you, Abhishek ji. I would like to go back to Shreemat sir. Shreemat sir, based on your work at the Nepal Agriculture Research Council, how do you see future of digital technologies in connecting farm to market? Are there any research or any sort of diagnostic studies that NARC has planned in this regard?
As mentioned by my earlier speakers, especially the database with respect to the crop area, because that is some confusing. So right now we are also working on the yield forecasting and identification the crop area by using the remote sensing satellites, remote sensing imageries, so that we can have the exact crop area, and even we can forecast the yield. That we are working on that. And especially with respect to the technology transfer, that traditionally our farmers are using the radio and the television, but nowadays farmers have started using the cell phones and even the social media platform like the Facebooks and even the YouTubes are very common nowadays. Nowadays, NARC, we are also organizing the toll-free services. We are running the farmer call centers so that especially in every Monday 2 to 4 p.m. we are running the call center so that the farmer can ask any type of technological services. We are providing the technological services, and especially we are also running the NARC Krishi mobile apps through which we are providing the different technology related services to the farmers. And also, we have also realized that, especially with respect to the promotion of this custom hiring agricultural technology services to the farmers, because as I've mentioned, it is this service is provided in the more informal way. But if you can provide, prepare mobile apps for this agricultural machinery rental services, so that the farmer can also have a competitive service, as well as especially the service provider, they can also have more efficient, optimize their operation, increase their operation hours, so they increase the profitability as well as the marketing. Because the marketing cost is also major cost of those this custom hiring service providers. So this marketing service can also be reduced by using this appropriate mobile apps. So there's lots of opportunity using these digital technologies, because nowadays, especially the young farmers are coming to the agriculture, especially for this in a commercial scale, for commercializing the agriculture. So these digital technologies will help them for the commercialization of their agriculture. So especially for the marketing and for the access of these quality services, competitive quality services, these digital technologies can help, as well as it can also help for the, we can also think for the digital transaction, because as mentioned before, my previous speaker mentioned about the late transaction of the, for example, farmers are also major problem with the farmers is about getting the late payment, due to it takes lots of time to get the payment. So the digital transaction of those the farm to market this payment can also help the farmers as well as the service provider to enhance their business in farming.
Thank you.
Saroj.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shrestha. Anandji, all these technologies should have some incentives for people to use. If they are not in incentives, these technologies are nice to have, but people will not use it. Based on your experience working in agriculture with a lot of agriculture cooperatives, farmers, how can technologies such as blockchain, fintech, digital finance help in creating incentives to connect farmers better with market in the Nepalese context? What's your sort of view on it?
Saroj, I have attended few discussions and been a speaker at few discussions where we have talked about technology and agriculture at the same space. And every time I go there, my question to most of the technology enthusiasts have been that where is the Facebook of agriculture, or where is the Uber of agriculture? Can we not come up with something like this? I mean, what did Facebook do and what did Uber do or what did Airbnb do is something known to us, right? And we talk about shared economy, we talk about shared expertise pool, experience, resources, equipment, but then, that ecosystem on the agri side has not developed. I mean, I see that once the ecosystem, I'm sure it is, one fine day, lots of pieces would come together, the dots would connect, and we would have an ecosystem which will answer most of the questions that we are raising. But talking about the incentives that these technologies could bring in is one, lower the investment per capita, per unit of land, or per farmer and stuff like that. A lot of rental, shared economy, Uber-like sharing of resources would come into play. Second, I think, and probably one of the largest incentives would be that if we could let our farmers know that the global parity price for any product is this in Nepal, that would give them an idea at which they should sell or not, and backed up by storage, so that if it is not sellable at that point of time, they can always store it and claim for hope for a better price at a later date. And also combine it with their monetary cash flow requirements. And on the cash flow requirements, I don't have an answer to how, but then I imagine that technology can play a major role. I mean, we are talking about digital wallets and we are talking about fintech and so on and so forth. But what we need to understand that the banks are more than eager to fund the farmers, but they have a problem. I mean, they have a problem in terms of cost of monitoring and deploying that money. Because the loan sizes are small and the team size has to become bigger. So is there a way we can find a solution for them? Having a policy that agri exposure per bank has to be so much is one thing, but having it encouragingly and incentivized. So I'm just not talking about farmer incentive, I'm also talking about getting the banking sector to be incentivized in some way, so that it's a win-win for both. And apart from that, yes, technology can talk about traceability. It can talk about what to produce and what the demand is. And yeah, and one of the major things I see is maybe we should take up this step through the larger crops, because those are only few in number, and if it's easier to monitor, and initial successes can be faced. So with this, I think, and I'm very hopeful that a major Facebook-like disruption, technology-enabled disruption, is due for us.
Yeah. Thank you, Anandji. You touched upon a very pertinent issue about access to finance to farmers through digital means, and because for the financial institutions it's very costly to reach to farmers, and that cost can be significantly reduced by the digital financial services. So, but there are some products also coming up in the market, and we are at a nascent stage right now. But I hope that in days to come, it will improve. Now, I would like to pose same question to Abhishek ji. How can digital technologies such as blockchain, fintech, digital finance help in creating incentives to connect farmers better with the market in our context?
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, digital technology has basically unparalleled advantage. I mean, it'll connect the farmers, bring them closer to the market, yet being very so far away from it, or very, like remotely accessing that wider access of market on their palm top, because all of us now have very small computers in our hand, and the access of mobile devices and its penetration is in a very high number, even in the rural areas. So I see, that platform management, where I was saying that where we can have the the supply chain management, the buying, selling happening, the logistic management, also the financial leverage and those kind of things. I mean, in an ideal world, that'll be a very, very big advantage to the smallholder farmers. But saying that, I mean, there is also other advantage, like you mentioned about blockchain. I mean, we have been now trying to promote like local produce based on their production zone names. And what we have seen is, like verifying and validating the source. It's one of the questions we also get from our clients. I mean, it's more like a trust, a verbal trust, but I don't think that's going to work in a mass audience, because what we have seen in the market is a lot of adulteration of and mixing products and those kind of things. So I think blockchain technology can definitely help on traceability of products from the source to the market. Giving that information to the end customers, which will then help the farmers, fetching like higher prices for the produce. Not only that, I think blockchain technology can also help in, putting that price commitments, ensuring those price commitments from the buyers and the seller. That's another thing as well. And one experience I have with digital payment system that, we worked with the smallholder farmers as well is, just having that technology, having that mobile wallet or mobile payment system in itself, does not support, the digital payment ecosystem. What we have seen is that, it also requires that infrastructure. For instance, I would like to say that, when we send money to our farmers, they need to have access to cash out points. And not only have access to cash out points, but also, the difficulties that we had faced was the agent not having enough cash reserves on their end to make the timely cash out payments. So, I mean, in a remote setup where you are trying to sort of take the leverage of mobile payment system because you do not have an access to a bank, the infrastructure, the ecosystem not being there creates a bad taste, on use of the technology. Another thing is like, there is a very limited expense a farmer or population in the rural area are living through digital payment system, because the best they can do is either do a top up in their mobile phone or pay the utility bill at most. And the other expenses from a digital payment system is very, very difficult. So I think we also need to think about that ecosystem that will support that digital payment system, to really talk about like how can we incentivize. I think then once that ecosystem is set, then I think that'll be a much better scenario where Anandji also mentioned the whole thing about digital payment system is having that unparalleled advantage to reach out to any point and any access to the market, and also lowering down the the OPEX cost. So I see there's a lot of benefits, but we have to look at it at a holistic view, and we also need to build that ecosystem around it.
Thank you, Abhishek. That was a very comprehensive type of summary that you presented. Definitely, as mentioned earlier, we are at a nascent stage, but definitely we are moving towards a digital ecosystem that can help in connecting farmers better with the market. And I'm sure that government will also come up with conducive policies and programs to help promote digital technologies to connect farm with the market, and also that private sector will be bringing up a lot of innovations to increase use cases for the farmers. As you mentioned, it's only top up and transfer of small amount of money, but there are not much use cases for the farmers to use digital technologies, which I am sure that will come up in the coming days. With this, we have come to the end of this panel discussion. We don't seem to have received questions, but I would like to ask panelists, if you want to make any extra point, additional point, please do so now.
Yeah, I think the main thing is, rather than building like parallel structures, how we can really address the pain points that we have discussed in this meeting, in this panel. Like, what are the key main points, and how can digitization, address those key points, along not forgetting that there is an infrastructure that's required at the back end. So we have to look it from a bird's eye view, and then maybe narrow down, and sort of like be specific and start resolving the problem, because this sector, there are so many moving parts. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. So just addressing one issue is not gonna like make the whole value chain successful. So I think it's really important to look at it from that angle. So yeah, I would like to pause.
Thank you, Abhishek. So with this, I would like to we have come to an end of this panel discussion. Thanks a lot to Shrestha for giving a very good overview of the production related technologies that are deployed in Nepal, and to Anandji for highlighting a lot of issues that how we can connect with the smallholder farmers and the cooperatives in the country. And Abhishek also to by giving a very comprehensive overview of the digital ecosystem in the country. And with this, I would like to close this panel discussion for now. But we will definitely, as UNCDF, we will connect with you all again in appropriate programs and forums where we can benefit from each other's experience in this area, connecting farm to the market. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.